The Story of the Bible. Introduction. With the hundreds of videos and podcasts out there explaining the Bible, you're probably asking, why do we need another one? Most of the videos are either theist, atheist, or anti-theist. I felt the need to make a series of videos that tell the stories of the Bible without trying to convert anyone to, or away from, religion. I'm not a scholar, minister, or preacher, nor do I think of myself as Christian or Jewish. I just want to tell these stories as I see them. I hope you find these enjoyable and educational. What is the Bible? In short, the Bible is a collection of scrolls, letters, priest records, poetry, genealogies, and just about everything else people thought should be in the collection. These have been collected into a single book we call the Bible. The word Bible comes from an Old English word for scroll. From this, we get the Latin Biblia, which means book. Who wrote the Bible? The Bible was written by lots of different people over many, many years. People who view the Bible as their religion's holy book believe the Bible was inspired by and/or written by God working through humans. To believers, this is what sets the Bible above all other books. Why does anyone still read the Bible? To the fundamentalist Christian, the Bible is the unchanging, eternal, absolute Word of God that must be taken literally and without question. To the rational Christian, the Bible is a 2,000-plus-year-old document that must be viewed as written for another time and different people. It must therefore be interpreted, if it is to be applicable today. Then there are Jews, Latter-day Saints, Catholics, and a host of Protestant denominations, all of whom interpret the Bible slightly or very differently, and believe in different parts of the Bible differently. But lots of other holy books have existed throughout history and have been forgotten. What makes the Bible endure? Ask yourself this as we explore the series of stories, myths, letters, and poetry known collectively as the Bible. The Bible is divided into two major sections. First, there's the Old Testament, also called the Torah or the Jewish Bible. The word testament in this context means covenant, contract, or agreement. This refers to the religious agreement between God and God's creations. The religious believe that God's creations must act in accordance with God's will to receive God's blessings, and/or to avoid God's punishments. The Jewish Bible tells the history of the world from the perspective of the Jewish people, their prophets, priests, and scribes. The Old Testament begins with the 5 books of Moses, also known as the Pentateuch and the Torah of Moses. The word Pentateuch means 5 books. These contain the stories of creation through the founding of the Hebrew nation with laws and government. The books of history are a record of the nations of the Hebrews. The books of poetry are a collection of poems, songs, sayings, and good advice. The prophets, major and minor, are books about or attributed to various prophets as they delivered the word of God, Jehovah, Yahweh, Elohim, to his people. The Old Testament history ends before or about 400 BCE. Then there's the New Testament. This section of biblical history starts out or about the year 1 CE. It begins with the story of the man Jesus, son of Joseph, son of God, also known as the Christ. It continues with the early church and letters explaining church doctrine and counseling believers in various cities under a variety of circumstances. Christians believe that the New Testament began a new moral and behavioral contract with the Almighty. The New Testament begins with the 4 Gospels. The word gospel comes from the Old English word gudspel and means good news. These 4 books tell of the birth, life, death, and teachings of Jesus of Nazareth. The book of Acts tells the history of the early Christian church. Paul's letters and the general letters are exactly that, letters. They were written to various Christian churches in a variety of cities to expound upon and explain Christian doctrine and beliefs as the early church grew in size and power. Tradition says that Paul's letters were written by St. Paul. The general letters are named after the persons they are traditionally attributed to. Last but not least, the Revelation of St. John. This is probably the most controversial and complicated book of prophecy in the whole Bible. Tradition says it was written by St. John while he was in exile on the Isle of Patmos. Depending on who you ask, it is either a book of prophecy, which describes the end of days, or the hallucinogenic ravings of a madman. It is difficult to find two Christians who share an interpretation of this book, which is filled with complex symbolism and some truly disturbing imagery. Why read the Bible? Will it help us better understand the meaning of God or its will? Maybe, and maybe not. But I hope to explore a book that, despite many contradictory interpretations, untold misapplications, and downright vicious attacks, has survived the test of time. Jews and Christians of all faiths draw strength and guidance from its pages. Some say we owe the Enlightenment and scientific discovery to the thought patterns which developed as a result of studying its teachings. Join us as we explore the stories, myths, legends, parables, laws, and advice which have been collected into the book we know today as the Bible.